uncaring and selfish environment, I can be completely the opposite of that. I totally have the free will to do that, you know, and I think that can be really a kind of nice realization.
Yeah, I remember Alan Watts saying once that his bringing back the teachings from the East was not an attempt to convert anyone, but rather he said that until you've compared your view with another, how do you even know that you agree with it? Right? It's just how things are. Let's at least consider an alternative and then say, no, I'm going to stick to my guns. I like the Judeo-Christian thing. I'm going to stick with it.
That's very literal if you're an American.
And even in that, like, now that you're mentioning Christianism, like, right here in Mexico, the view of Buddhism is like literally going to the forest, like live there, like that's what people think Buddhism is.
Right.
Like, it's really quite crazy how, like, not even like, yeah, I understand the view, but they understand it from ignorance, like they don't completely go in, like they just superficially go like, yeah, Buddha did this, okay. And
yeah, or perhaps even do some basic discernment or investigation.
Precisely.
I recall a time right before I left for Thailand to go on retreat. My parents chose dinner the night before my departure to tell me that they were scared that I was off to join a cult. So I enjoyed working through that one on the plane ride and the retreat and a couple months afterward. Because people don't tend to do the kind of investigation that we're interested in, which to us at some point just begins to look like a basic checking something out. Just find out, hey, what's it about? What's it about? Let me not just draw my own conclusions. Let me go Google. Now, there's a generational thing in that, I think, as well, largely. The amount of times I've told my mother, she'll come to me with some question about how to do something on her computer, and I'll say, Mum, go to the computer, type into the computer what you just said to me, and there's your answer. Way better than I could give it to you. Right? So there's a generational thing there, I think, a lot of times.
What I also enjoy about this issue of like experiencing different cultures and a bit in conjunction or putting together what Joe earlier said was that when you experience another culture and another language and stuff, you can so easily see how absolutely arbitrary all that stuff is, and that's what I really enjoyed when I saw it for the first time. I really liked that. It was really
yeah, just to see, hey, look, I'm surrounded by thousands of people all doing things opposite to the way that I've been doing them my entire life. How cool is this? Yeah. Many benefits to travel.
So I got here while Joe was talking about impermanence, I would think, like out there to say, like, things changing and stuff. Like, that's when I entered the call, and I love that talk, because while reading about Tibetan Buddhism, the first thing that we practice detachment, unattachment, and well, we can actually attach to something. Like, we can actually grab something that we know for certain, like the only thing that we know for certain is gonna happen, and that's impermanence. Like that's real. Like that blew my mind. Like there's a phrase that says we spend our whole lives learning how to live, and well, when the time comes to die, and you really didn't learn to live, but you didn't either learn to die. So like why don't we learn to die? Because that's the only thing that we can actually prepare for. Like that's for certain. Like I'm gonna die, and well, let's get ready for it, man. Like I love that work. I love
Yeah, and it gets it's trippy already. It gets even trippier when you start to look at, well, hey, I'm kind of dying in every moment.
yeah.
And you are already, in a way, you're already dead, because that's the only certain thing, as Rula said. You are gonna die. That means it practically has happened, and yet we're sitting here talking to each other.
Wow.
Well, and so then you get into who do you mean when you say who?
Yeah.
You're neither dead nor alive.
Right? It all gets very, very trippy, especially when this stuff moves from the intellectual to the experienced.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love that from
Oh,
the
yeah.
Tibetan.
I actually had a moment on my walk today where like just for a split second or some, so I was completely sober and I felt like I was tripping balls, man.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when that happens. I was at work the other day, and it was like the whole time I was on no drugs, just like tripping like fucking crazy. Like I was thinking about dependent origination and all kinds of shit, like explosions happening in my mind while I'm like pushing a dust mop in a hardware store.
Yeah. Because why not?
I'm sorry, who spoke? Like I didn't see anyone talking.
I think you can.
It was me, Brandon.
Yeah. So up the top
Oh.
of my screen, Rulaz, I have some extra circles for folks who are just joining us on audio.
Yeah, I just saw. Like I was like,
Yeah.
wow, no one's
Yeah.
moving their mouth.
That's where this group has progressed, just straight telepathy.
Hey, I had a question.
Go ahead, Alex.
So, I mean, I'm pretty fascinated by all those experiences too. Like, that was me yesterday. I was tripping balls just walking outside, and it was after a meditation practice of noticing everything in my experience as object. And I know, Dan, you and I talked, and we basically had decided that it's important to not get attached to those kinds of experiences also. But it also sounds like, I guess how I heard that is that it's not any phenomena, because right, if you see it, it's phenomena. So how I heard that is that it's to be weary of, or to be
enjoyed.
To be enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
like
don't
everything
want to
else.
be attached to non-attachment either. It's a really tricky thing.
Yeah, there's no rule regarding how phenomena should be regarded. The whole teaching is in the not being attached. That's all we need to watch for. We want to not make anything of those experiences. We certainly want to avoid the trap of trying to repeat them.
Right.
Because
thinking that they meant this
they're
or that.
impermanent too.
They're impermanent too.
Yep. It just goes and it comes and goes, and you can't. Yeah, exactly. The non-attachment to that, experience.
That which
Well, you
comes
say
and
how
goes.
they're impermanent, right? And we don't want to get attached to them, right? But at the same time, Dan, you said that it gets really tricky when it goes into the experiential level.
It can.
So, which is what happened for me yesterday. So when you're in that experiential level of integrating some of these experiences, is it ever the case that some of these experiences don't actually, like, are not impermanent? Is there an aspect to the experiential aspect of going into these experiences that become that more just become a part of your natural experience?
Well, I think Brandon might have an answer for you that he shared earlier on.
Okay.
In the form of a question. Do you remember what?
Well, basically, yeah. It's like ask yourself if impermanence is impermanent, and then follow your mind down that rabbit hole for 7 hours, and you'll get nowhere.
I was thinking of a simple question that you asked, Brandon, which was just show me something that's permanent. That was how you phrased it.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. It's the same exact thing, however way you say it. You're
right.
You're just chasing a carrot at that point.
And Alex, I mean, you just asked, like, you asked about something on the experiential level that becomes permanent. So that even already kind of answers itself, because even if it were that that something changed that you maybe could carry with yourself to your grave, then even if that were the case, it started at some point and there was a before. So even that is not technically permanent, even if you were to experience it like that for the rest of your life.
Then what is the point in then, like, talking about the experiential aspect of these conditions if we're meant to just let them pass away? It seems as there's just as much a revere for these experiential insights as there is for letting them go and not being attached for them.
I think you can understand it in the sense of you can examine the experience and investigate the experience to see what could be learned from the experience in terms of maybe matching concepts with your experience. But beyond that, holding on to that experience is something you want in the future of a certain state that you want or a certain experience is that's when it gets into the unwholesome. Doing the investigation there and then letting that be what it was. Yeah. And moving on.
As a general rule, if you get attached to something awesome, it kind of reduces the chance that you're actually going to have it in the future as easily.
Yeah, I've noticed that for sure.
Right, but and so that's not to say that we can't experience it as awesome.
Exactly, yeah. There's no problem with that.
Right, you hear that, Alex?
So as awesome is fine.
Yeah. So we can enjoy the show. In fact, that's recommended. And it's then about investigating that subtle difference between enjoying the hell out of it and being attached to it. Of course, the way we're trained, those two very often come together.
I guess
it's almost automatic. It's socially, culturally, biologically, it's almost an automatic grab, hold on to, and then of course in certain like religious schools, one would even attribute a lot of meaning, like extra meaning to it as well, which is really just a distraction. All that meaning that's been hung onto it, like is decoration. But yeah.
I guess I'm a little
In a
stumped
lot of
because
ways, the meaning
there's
isn't separate from the experience, though. Too, it creates part of what the experience is. It's a really tricky thing, but there is benefit in like not trying to attach a bunch of extraneous meaning if you can help it.
Well, the meaning
I
is
agree.
illusory anyway, right? The meaning is that ego generated, and then is interpreted often through that lens of culture or even other religions that someone may have been exposed to. So yeah.
One other rather practical thing is also because you asked the question of why are we even talking about it. That's one way of getting it out of your system, so to say. There's some things where you're just like, man, I gotta tell someone about this shit.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a social connection that we are often driven to experience as well. And this in itself could be seen as a pleasant experience that not too much should be attached to either. Right? Every
also,
moment is that chance.
But there must be there must be an abiding experiential experience to having fully accepted oneself, having fully loved your dark sides.
Subtractive.
Yes, subtractive, right. But what I'm saying is, in that subtraction, there has got to be, but even in my own experience, there's more relief, there's more ease in my day-to-day now than there was years ago.
Yeah, and that's the absence of things,
right,
rather than an addition of things.
Right.
Math.
I think what I'm getting at is that, like, my argument is that there is an actual experience that lingers in the absence of all of those things that we're letting go of.
You kind of have new habits, right? You're giving up the old
Exactly.
habits for a new habit, and the new habit gives you a different experience of the world. So,
right,
if that's what you mean by, hanging around, I think that would make sense, right? Because unless you get rid of that habit, it's going to continue.
Right.
And part of this habit could be freedom from the hindrances that had you wanting states or going between states, or like Dan is saying, freedom from the things that we're trying to add, but now you can just let go.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, that is, I guess a state you could call it is quite secluded from hindrances, is absence of hindrances.
Yeah. I mean, like, by comparison, that has got to be like absolute, I don't know, freedom. It's got to be absolute relief. That's got to be.
Yeah. Relief is a great word. Relief is a great
experiential
word for
level. That's got to be something experiential. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, Dag, to your point, I think that is why we talk about it, to get it out of our system. But I think another big part of it is because we all want that relief. We all want that freedom. And we're going to keep wanting that freedom, even in practicing not wanting.
Well, and Dhammarato would tell you that that's a wholesome thing to want. If we're going to want anything, let's want freedom.
Exactly.
And I can totally get you, Alex. I think because I'm also at least in my mind, it's also like, at least the way that those who have walked before us and that we listen to talk, it at least suggests that there is some kind of significant difference in experience. And I mean, to a certain degree, we can also verify that already for ourselves. And yet nothing in a way really changes. It's I couldn't answer this myself, but
because we're moving by a process of subtraction, we're moving toward the ordinary.
Dan and Rick, is it Rick?
Mm-hmm.
You brought up about the meaning, and that it's good to I forgot who said that exactly, but you commented on it. But the I mean, I think as a human, I mean, we naturally do meaning, and if you're going to brighten the mind, like Dhammarato says, you have to change the meaning of the actual inputs you have. Correct? I mean, so how do you eliminate that and still have good results? I guess with because the brightening of the mind involves changing the meaning of how you're looking at whatever the situation is at that moment.
If we were to exchange the word meaning for view, would that be comfortable for you, Christopher?
Yeah, but it's almost like a synonym at that point. You know what I mean?
It could be, and yeah, I mean, clearly we're in semantics here, right? The reason I suggest view is because it's on that list of 8. And where meaning has that quality of it being something fabricated, view, right, has that more, we're talking about perspective, a way of seeing things.
Well, that is something that Dhammarato brought up. That it's like a subtle point, I think, for most people. It was for me, but really important is that when he talks about I think he's had several comments in a lot of the things I've listened to about positive thinking, and most people take that as, okay, I am feeling wonderful today, or tomorrow I'm going to do this. But his whole thing is to take what's happening right this second and sort of reframe it or add meaning to the thing happening right now. It's not something in the future. It's not something in the past. You're not reworking stuff. You're dealing with this moment, which kind of lit a light bulb in my head. I mean.
Yeah, and a whole other side of what we're doing here is we're kind of open sourcing our investigations, right? So that, Alex, you bring this big juicy question and we all chew on it for a while together. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a question. You're talking about grasping and trying to hold on to these experiences. And that made me think of the jhanas. I think I was listening to Robert. You did a talk with Dhammarato about jhana, I think, just recently. So one thing I noticed that Dhammarato says is that, he says, well, you've been in and out of the jhanas while I've been talking to you. But then when I read about jhanas, like the first, or at least first jhana, not multiple jhanas, but the first jhana, he says you've been in and out of first jhana. But when I read about the first jhana in a lot of books, it seems like that's a pretty intense experience, like a kundalini type of thing. And I can tell you, I have not had that. So, I mean, I was wondering what comments people have on that.
Daniel Ingram, in a book called Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, introduces a concept of light and hard jhana. So he says you can have like a very mild version of the jhana, just sort of coloring your view, the way you perceive, and then you can have like the full thing, which he calls a hard jhana, and then that would be like the more Parok Sayadaw, I think, his like definition of jhana, which is like the really, like it's very strict and probably similar to what you were reading, and that's much more of a sort of a difficult state to get into. It takes more skill than the light jhanas.
Yeah, I do agree with what Dhammarato says, that at least early, like, smaller kind of blips of jhana are here, because jhana are just ways of perceiving, in a sense. They're just a loss of certain fabrications that we like to think are important or like fun to see happen or feel significant or have meaning behind them. Like, you're just dropping away fabrications until you get to Nirodha Samapatti, and at that point you got there, whatever. But all along the way, like, you're running into these different perceptual abilities. Like, you can sometimes focus with your vision, and if you focus long enough on one thing, you can notice it go from I'm looking at the thing, then it's like almost like I'm connected to the thing, like the focus is really easy, and then you go to 2, and then it gets to have like the nice kundalini type stuff that one person mentioned just a minute ago. like you might have stronger energies. It's kind of like the arising and passing away step on the insight stages. Is kind of, it's a rough way to think about it, but these don't always happen when you're like in every meditation necessarily, even for people who are amazing. If you're just doing it like if you focus on the corner of your laptop screen for 5 minutes, you're probably gonna, for a blip of time at some point be in, some of the jhanas. But this is so unnoticeable to the mind that hasn't already seen like the big macro version of it that shows some more of the, flavors to it and how it works. There are people who can go from like boundless space to boundless consciousness in a sort of, in a way with eyes open. There are even people who claim this, and Daniel Ingram also talks about it too. But like you can have aspects of the jhana there. I see someone raise a question.
No, you can continue. Just sometimes people put their hands up just to say, but keep going.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that was a keep going. Sorry. Basically the idea is, even in the visual field, you can be in certain jhanas, and people even claim that there are formless jhanas. It can be in a certain way experienced, like you can feel the boundless space aspect of the actual jhana, like in its full form, like Rob was talking about. But you can feel that space complete. You're all space, quote unquote. You can feel that even when you're living your daily life, and there you could even switch to like boundless consciousness in a certain sense, not like a complete full way, but complete. Basically, it's a really easy way to just you extend your sense of self to everything. Even if there's a trash can in front of you, you could, everything might have that feeling of consciousness. I am this, I am that. It's almost related to like some of the people who do a bunch of psychedelics talk about like God consciousness and things like that. I mean, when you feel consciousness feel to be everywhere, it's a oneness type experience feeling. So I don't know. I'm talking for a long time, so I'll let other
No, it's fine.
ask questions or.
No, this is all great, Brandon. To explain just a little further what the raised hand thing tends to mean in our little group here is just who wants to go next. Kind of
okay, cool.
Click the
I'll
little button,
see
right?
Where that button is.
Yeah. So if you have more, please continue.
Oh, I mean, I have more. If nobody has anything else to say, I'm used to talking for a long time about this stuff. You can ask Rob.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are all of these different qualities. The jhana, the way I see it is, it's like some certain way that humans perceive things, and it's a good path for them to go to places of less fabrication. Or what feels like it. What about an alien that has completely different neurochemistry and is made from some combination of elements we don't even have an idea would function like us? Do they experience the same jhanas? I don't know if we can really say that.
Well, and indeed, between one human and the next. Can we really ever confirm, right? Unless we get tons of people under MRI.
Well, there are some people who say you can't confirm that the other people have even consciousness, and it's like there isn't much you can really confirm 100% in this life. I'm sorry, guys.
Yep.
But it's all the more fun that way sometimes.
Right. Go ahead, Joe.
I felt like Christopher tried to jump in a few times. Do you want to go ahead, Christopher? answers your
Yeah,
question.
I was just going to ask. So, are the experiences a key to the path, or are they irrelevant? Because, like, so for example, with hypnosis, there's all kinds of hypnotic phenomenon. Like, I can make you raise your arm or not feel things or whatever, but that's not critical to hypnosis. It's just phenomenon that happens. These things actually happen when you're doing hypnosis. So, is this these states, I guess, that happen, are they part of the past? Because it seems to me when I read about it, it's like, okay, when you do this, it's almost like a guidepost. This is going to happen in the first jhana. I'm going to have this. I've even read where people have this intense feeling that's uncomfortable for like 5 months or whatever. I've even read it about people that weren't in Buddhism, like with the guy that did the Sedona method. The guy who originated that, he went through a thing where he felt so much bliss or whatever for like 4 or 5 months that it got annoying after a while. And I think Dhammarato's spoken about that too, where you feel so good so long that you're like, okay, I've had enough of this, and then you go to the next level. So is that like a signpost, or is that what you're actually looking for?
To release attachment, in my opinion, is once you've had enough of your cake, you kind of want to go take a sip of milk or something. Like you get to where it's like more normalized, and then it does lead to a path of going to like being so let go of things to where the process can kind of naturally unfold more. It's not necessarily that there's a doer doing all of this either. A lot of people claim, and that's murky territory to say whether there is or not, in my opinion. Even having many of those type experiences, or I could even, look at my hand right now and, there would be an element of feeling that, but I don't know if that answered things clearly.
This is all great from where I'm sitting. Joe, do you mind if I just add something?
Go ahead.
Which is just that I think it's important for us to remember that there are so many interpretations out there, and we can pick up one book by a teacher who's highly respected and revered in one tradition, and they will have one interpretation of jhana, and then another book from another teacher who's highly respected and revered in another tradition, maybe even two teachers from the same tradition. We're going to find differences in Ajahn Chah to Ajahn Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. And when we consider the infinite variables that are possible within the mind, it's no small wonder. When we also consider that we're in the realm of words here, then it's going to be really difficult to finally pin down. We're certainly never going to get everyone to agree on exactly what jhana is. 1, 2, 3, or 4, or some people go up to 8. I like Dhammarato's representation of the whole thing, which is where he refers to that sutta where the Buddha recalled sitting under the rose apple tree as a youngster and recalling that first jhana is adequate for the investigation that's necessary for awakening. That's been the tidiest explanation that I've found, but Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but that's also I really am drawn to Thai forest tradition in general. So yeah, that's it's not just Dhammarato. That's kind of a general sort of thing there. Ajahn Brahm has the same thing. He has a good explanation there. But I wanted to kind of get to what Christopher asked about it being, are they like signposts? And I think no would be my answer, that they're not really signposts of anything. It's just another opportunity to investigate when they do arise, when these experiences do arise. But it's not a like, hey, I've made it to this point, it means anything, because if you don't take that investigative ability, that extra perceptual ability that comes as a result of the jhanas, and use it for something wholesome, then it's kind of pointless. As Brandon was mentioning, you can stare at a corner in the computer and you'll probably have moments of first jhana, but like, what are you going to do with that? And then just the other quick thing I wanted to mention, if you're interested in like how to actually do it though, and you are still a little bit attached to the world, and you're like, hey, I just really want to do this. The book Right Concentration by Leigh Brasington is like the best guide that I've ever seen after like years of trying other stuff. That book is just awesome at laying out like a practical sort of like, hey, this is how you're going to do it.
I think that's where I saw the explanation. I think that's where I saw that explanation.
Oh, okay. Oh, about
it's called the
5 months.
Right Concentration. Is that right?
Yeah, the book is called Right Concentration: A Practical Guide to the Jhanas by Leigh Brasington.
Okay.
I didn't finish the whole book because I didn't get past that first part there, but it seems pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I think it's good to just stop because, like, I mean, it's just like curiosity. I mean, I have not gotten anywhere like deeper, and it's just sort of like spiritual masturbation to read about like the 6th jhana for me. Like, it's just pointless, you know.
But it feels good.
Are you saying that because it's like become normal, or because like
no, because I haven't come anywhere
or you
close
haven't gotten it?
Yeah, I haven't come anywhere close to it.
Yeah, I read about that.
It's freaky when life is like that all the time, in a sense. Like, you don't know. It's weird. It's really weird.
Rick,
what's weird about it?
On that, raise your hand next.
Well, I mean, if you just imagine like going from like when you're a kid and you feel like you're in this collapsed ego, like let's say around like 12 years old or something, you don't know about this stuff. Most people, maybe some really gifted people are just lucky. I don't know how you want to say it. Like someone who's going to become an actual master one day, like maybe, I don't know. They might have it, but every one of us probably had a time for a long time that we just felt like collapsed into ego, and then slowly as you go on the spiritual path, like you notice more things, like it changes the way that your life goes, and it's just another jump, like changing you to be able to perceive more. It's not that anything new was necessarily added, it's that you're just noticing aspects that were there, or at least that's how experience at least shows what it's doing or how we interpret it. So we just go off of what we've experienced, and that's our best shot. And as we see more things, we assume that it must have been there, like it's in our memories, that, you know, it was there, we didn't experience it, but, you know, it seems to apply to everything now. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound weird to me, but I wonder if you're speaking about a weirdness as a bridge, because it sounds as though what you're describing is ending up in that ordinariness. Does that sound accurate?
Oh, like it's not a gigantic special thing anymore? Is that what you mean? Like it's an ordinary thing, or
what you described didn't sound weird to me.
No, I don't. Oh yeah, well that's good then, I guess. It just, to me, it's a bit weird sometimes.
Okay.
Just to know that, you know, such a big thing like seemed to always be under your nose the whole time, and then you're like, oh,
right,
okay.
Yeah, I hear that kind of hidden in plain sight kind of quality.
I have a question. Regarding this sort of concept of awakening being hidden in plain sight. Do you think there's a lot of merit to not exerting very much effort at all to be mindful and to investigate, and to sort of try to exert the minimum effort we can while still like trying to like notice this thing? Just because like if it's so obvious, we shouldn't have to exert effort. And I've heard Rupert Spira say like exert no effort, just be it. And I was meditating with that last night, and it was good. Like it gladdened my mind, because I guess I had a lot of faith in what he was saying, and so it made me feel happy. But I'm not sure.
We each have to play with this, and it's kind of like a balancing. Not too tight, not too loose. Was the Buddha's teaching on right effort, right?
And
sometimes
also
you might need to.
Depends how much and how much shit you have piled up on it during the course of your life, and a bit like what the quality of that stuff is. It can. I think it could be that it's a lot harder for some and a lot easier for others to just be like, oh wait, what?
Yeah.
You could also say that we have these habit patterns built up, and the momentum is kind of heading that way. So not doing anything, not having any effort at all, we'll probably just continue with those old habits. But we can just put in just enough right effort to change those habits, and then be in that effortless state that you're talking about. And then when maybe something else arises and the old habits come again, we can change that again. Use just the enough right effort to not go by those old habits.
Yeah, but there's a bit of foundation building in the beginning, like with anything, right? There's got to be some foundation building, and that, as always in the beginning, may feel like quite a bit of effort as we pull ourselves from those old patterns. And it's I feel like it's necessary for us to kind of not use the idea of little effort too much as an excuse to, as you said, Parker, not do anything, right? It's sort of like we got to get ourselves some inertia with some effort, and then eventually maybe it will come along to, oh, this doesn't feel like effort at all. But before a foundation is built, it's hard to drift into it. It's not like you can drift into it. It's like, I accidentally got there. Yeah.
And here is the difficulty that's before the teacher who is addressing an audience. Because if that teacher prescribes one thing, and I would say that a recommendation to build a foundation would be a safer prescription than the recommendation to do nothing. If you tell someone who's suffering with addiction to do nothing, well, they might just end up killing themselves.
Good point.
Right? However, on the other hand, someone who perhaps has had little trauma in their past, who got a light brushing from the stick of conditioning, might just be able to go and listen to someone like Rupert and see what he's speaking about, and there might be an opportunity for them to see something in that. So it's difficult for a teacher who's addressing an audience. Now, of course, Rupert is speaking within a very specific philosophy, the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, which has its own thing going on. Yeah.
A light brushing from the stick of conditioning? Really?
Do you think anyone's gotten off that lightly?
Poetic.
No, but it's lovely. It's lovely. It's worthy of airport sandwiches.
Dhammarato said he had the story of flicking a booger off. Oftentimes the booger is pretty sticky and you have to really flick it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I also heard him use the analogy of the clenched fist. Right. And he said the instruction to just let go, right, when you've got arthritic joints here that have been curled, or, like when you get off the roller coaster and you've been gripping so tight that you can't open your hands up. When I used to play drums as a teenager, I would play so hard, I would get so overexcited that following the show, I wouldn't be able to open my thumbs out away from my hands. So that's what happens when you grip tightly. And of course, when it comes to conditioning, we've been gripping tightly for not a few hours, but a few decades. Yeah. And so what Dhammarato said is, the instruction to let go sometimes just ain't enough.
Right, it's
what's usually needed is more a prizing open of those fingers, or maybe a massaging, right?
Yeah,
it's up to each of us to play with these things ourselves too. That's the whole thing, right? Is that it's up to each of us to play with it, but it's also good to have friends around you who can be like, hey, I noticed that your practice is getting a little bit unbalanced in this way. Because I've met a lot of yoga people who sort of are in this sort of do nothing mentality, and they really do nothing in life for a lot of years, and it's extremely unbalanced on that end. And then on the other end, I have other friends who do noting practice, and they're wired like constantly, and and you see this, and you notice it in yourself too, where you're like, I've noticed different parts of my practice where I'm like, oh, like if I try this sort of practice, it has this result, and if I try this, it sort of has this result, So
that's the one.
My general take on it would be like, if you think do nothing feels better or sounds better, try it. Try doing nothing for a while, and if doing nothing ends up giving you nothing and no progress, maybe it's time to try something. And then when you're trying something forever, if it's not progressing you, try switching your approach. You can't really be fixed with a lot of these things. You have to be kind of adaptable. Like a kung fu of consciousness or something. You're like dancing around with all this stuff in your consciousness at the same time. It's not easy to like grasp it, and the rules of the game kind of switch up on you as your life goes on. Different psychological things come up, or a hard experience, and you're like, wow, maybe I wasn't as advanced on this as I thought, or maybe there's something I was really missing. Who knows what's going to happen. So you got to just be adaptable and try to find what works, and be pay attention, maybe even track what your progress in like a journal, and you can see if maybe I'm making a mistake in the way I'm viewing things and doing my practice.
And what worked in the past is not necessarily going to always work in the future is another aspect of that, because you can really get stuck in that of like, hey, but this used to work for me at this point in time, and
And there's a unique predicament among our generation of practitioners, which is the sheer number of teachings and practices to which we have access. And each and every one of these teachings says this is the teaching.
One. Yeah.
Well, which the one is the one?
There's too many the ones. There's too many the ones.
Now, I considered at some point regarding all of this. Well, hold on a minute, and I feel I've probably shared this with at least one of you before. Hold on a minute. These teachings were probably given in climates where people were still sacrificing goats. So someone rolls in with the Dhamma and says, stop! This is the way. But now we've got the way from Tibet, and the way from Japan, and the way from Thailand, the way from anywhere else who wants to throw their hat in the ring.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is to see the fingers pointing at the moon. Okay, they're pointing from different places, but what's the commonality among these teachings? Where do they agree? How is it that the Dalai Lama and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa sat, chatting Dharma, all smiles, loving it? Well, it's because they agree. So although downstream we might see differences in these teachings, upstream they're all pointing at that moon.
Then I wanted to add on something before I go to what the metaphor of the clenched fist that you gave a while back. I really like that because as everyone else probably knows, when you've done something for a while that gave you this kind of cramps, of course, even when you relax again, it'll hurt. At least that's how I experience it. At my muscle when they had to cramp up.
Sorry, Doug. Someone's got some TV sound going on in the background. Thanks.
Good.
Go ahead, Doug.
So that when you have had a cramp, and even if you try to release the muscles again, that they still go on hurting for a while still. And I really like that because that's been my experience with this fist open isn't necessarily a pleasant thing. It can, at some points, it can be like, oh, that's releasing, but often it can be that it really hurts, at least at first.
Yeah, it also may feel very unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really describes a lot of your experience, Doug. Yeah,
and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. But
no.
Anyway, I gotta head off. It was really cool seeing all you guys. Brandon, cool that you joined for the first time. And have a good time.
Nice talking.
Great seeing
Cheers,
you,
Doug.
Doug.
Great
Nice
to
to
see
meet
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Doug.
Now, Robert up top has a hand up.
Yeah, I actually forgot during that what I was actually going to say. Sorry.
Okay, well, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all this kind of open source goodness, right? Kind of like a shared train of thought.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Really wonderful stuff.
You know what? One thing that I wonder is like, you know, it tends to be in our group that we're all kind of like the same sort of age range, very like male. Like I wonder.
Very male.
Yeah. I wonder if it like leads us to like certain just general things, like topics that we talk about or ways of being, or like, I don't know, what are our blind spots that happen because of this? I'm just curious if anybody
Maybe Olivia could tell us.
It's true.
Oh, she's not here.
But yeah,
I'm just happy you said we're all in the same age group. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, the real truth is no age.
Yeah.
Debbie
like
also
flying.
sometimes, of course. She's sat here by me right now, exhausted after a long day's work. No energy to tell us all of our shortcomings. Hooray!
I think it's one of those things where because the group is like the ebb and flow is a bit dynamic, we'll just have to accept whatever perspectives happen to come in at the particular time. Yeah, of course, there's going to be blind spots, you know, based on culture, gender, etc. But again, it's good for us also to just appreciate the perspectives, whether they're very male or not. You know, and just okay, this is what we're working with. These are the tools we happen to have today. You know, that's you know, that's why I see it.
Yeah, and a lot of our conversation, as I think you were perhaps touching upon, Brandon, is that we're really going upstream with a lot of this stuff. To where, yes, if we talk on the level of our conditioning, our history, there's certain relative truths. But when we get deep into that Dharma, not sure it really matters all that much.
Yeah, like we talked early about the cultural barriers that we think we know the truth, and then we know someone that's living a completely other truth, and they're even happier, and it's like, wow, so crazy. Like, so, like a male, I sometimes meet people, meet women, meet trans women, and I'm like, wow, it's like really. It's really 180, sometimes 360 that I get all dizzy. Like it's really like a whole new perspective. But until we meet that, till we have that moment, that instant of where our perspectives meet, like that's when we can get the best out of it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
until
like,
then,
don't get me wrong. Like, I think it can be helpful too, because like obviously the truth or the Dhamma is like a shifting target, right? It's like right now, and it's right now again. So like,
Yeah, that's a good point, man.
you know, that's the hard thing with searching for truth, is that you're like there's no fixed truth because it's continuously happening again now, you know. So
which is why the only thing to do in the end is to
It's
call off the
crazy.
search.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, there was one night I found myself in some ridiculously high conscious state, and I was imagining what it'd be like to be, you know, a Buddha cockroach and try to communicate the Dharma to cockroaches with no tools other than cockroach communication that they naturally have. Like, that's kind of like, imagine what an alien race sees us as. Maybe that's the level of like immaturity they might see us having and the ability to perceive the Dharma. We don't know. Like,
Well, they definitely roll the windows up when they fly by.
Look at these Dhamma dudes.
They definitely roll the windows up
Skyping.
and lock the doors as they fly by. There's no question. I don't want to go to Earth. I don't even want to go by Earth.
And with cockroaches, you don't lock your doors because you're afraid they're gonna kill you. You lock your doors because you're like, I don't even want to be around that thing. Like, who cares? It's a little nasty. We'll just drive by. I think that's a funny concept.
Yeah.
Those anxious monkeys. Look at those anxious monkeys down there. Blowing themselves up. Yeah, we're anxious monkeys.
You know, I have a question for you guys, because I know that a lot of you talk to Dhammarato, and I've seen like videos of you guys talking to him. Like, sometimes I feel like I should talk to him, but I don't feel like I know what to ask or where to direct the conversation.
I've got the exact same thing.
And it's like I have this sort of
I would
feeling
just
where I'm
call
like,
him up and talk. Just
Yeah,
talk
but
about whatever. He is. It will be a positive experience unless you're like meditating in some hardcore retreat for 2 hours. I would say it's a pretty good way to use 2 hours of your time. And
Yeah,
Dharma's
definitely.
going to end up coming up as a topic. So
Yeah.
like, I would encourage you, anyone here, if you haven't talked to him, to at least try it out. I mean, I came from a completely different flavor of Buddhism, but you know, one of Dhammarato's teachings really unlocked a lot of things for me and gave me a path to a lot of progress. Do I agree with everything he says? Not 100%, but I think he's a great teacher. I would definitely recommend, you know, he's a great resource. You literally have a master of Buddhism out there who's going to talk to you for free.
Yeah.
That's a pretty valuable thing. Imagine, you know, think of all the people who were, you know, spiritual seekers for thousands of years who, you know, there was no one around, and you've got someone on the internet who will talk to you for free. Like, take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I definitely, I don't think it's preventing me from calling him. It's just more, I want to take advantage of that time, because I feel like it's so precious, the time that I have.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, of course. But I would say just do some like journaling or something. And, you know, if any questions come up during your normal day that seem Dharma related, you know, you could make a little list and then pick some of the good ones and, you know, go into it with that. You know, just do a little tracking of what your day's like. I mean, I'm sure some part of the Dharma is going to come into your daily life and you'll at least be a little curious. It might not be the top of top things, but if you track it long enough, I'm sure you'll run into some of them if, you know, you pay attention.
Alternatively, he'll love it if you just call him up and smile at him.
Exactly. That's why I was saying, you just call. Like, I wouldn't worry too much.
He'll go with his
make up the
topic.
questions on your next call, or go with whatever he wants to talk about. He's going to talk about the Dharma if you're not saying anything, probably, unless you just all are silently smiling for an hour straight, which he seems to like talking, from what I've seen.
Yeah, he does seem to like talking.
He talks all
sometimes
day
I feel like I can't get a word
so.
in. Yeah, so sometimes I wait for him to take a drink of water so that way I can like get a word in.
That's not move. Yeah, thank you for asking that, Joe. 'Cause I had a similar question.
That's a good question.
I don't have any
Yeah,
questions
no,
come up because the method seems so straightforward, right? It's like you just be happy now. You just try to you know, if you're resistant, then you have to sort of like go meta on it and sort of be clever, and it's this dynamic process. But at the same time, I feel like it is quite straightforward. Like, so it's like sometimes, like I haven't called him in like a week and a half because I just haven't known what to ask since I last called.
Try the smiling thing.
In 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The last time
Maybe I'll do
I
that
was
tonight.
like, it was a brief question I made, and it was really like 45 minutes to call, and it was like, wow, it's really like, wow, 45 minutes, and it was 2 weeks earlier, and like, I don't know, like I can see like my practice is feeling good, even from that, because I don't have any questions from that. Now that Brandon told you, like, just talk to him, like, I think that could be fun.
I sometimes don't call them. I haven't called them for like 3 or 4 weeks because it just seems synchronicity wise. Every video I listened to was answering the question I had. But if I have a lot of times the questions you were asking Joe and Brandon mentioned it, I'll listen to something and then a question will pop up while I'm listening, and I'll just jot that down for the next time I talk to them. But it's like you said, Rulez, you could ask one question and that can go for an hour and 45 minutes. So I have a list of about 15 questions, but I mean, I know I'm not going to give them all in one shot. It's just you gotta kind of ease them in. But I listen to those recordings every morning when I walk my dog, and it's such a great resource to have people that it's think about 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. There's nothing like that. I mean, even people that did audio tapes or whatever, there's nothing where you're like hearing things where people are asking real questions and you're hearing real answers right there. I mean,
You would have had to ordain.
Yeah, Dhammarato travel to Thailand and ordain.
Right. Or it would be like a tape seminar or something that somebody happened to like record or something. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, it's incredible value. Yeah. And there's a kind of osmosis thing that occurs as well, right? And we're all getting a good taste of it right now. Just hanging out is enough.
Yeah.
And I know Dhammarato loves it. Win-win.
Yeah. What do you guys do aside from like Dhammarato's technique? Because one of the questions that I had for him was, once I've brightened the mind and I'm, like happy and awakened and stuff, like what do I do then? And he sort of said, well, you clearly haven't brightened the mind enough if you're still thinking about what do I do then. So like you gotta keep, right? But I was wondering if you guys do any other practices that maybe help you become better at brightening, or just any other approaches that you like to integrate, because
Like-
it is a wide world of practice after all, right? There's all
Dhammarato
these
would
different-
just say to you that to enjoy, like enjoy, man, like
That's all there is to
writing
do.
of, like enjoy the experience of whatever is going on in the moment, like you're meditating, well, enjoy meditation, whatever you're doing, enjoy that, and like this comes from the same attachment and desire of wanting something more, like yeah, I know I'm sitting right here, but I want something more. Like I want to feel, like Christopher told us earlier, like I want to feel this jhana, like boom, exploding something inside of me, like that still is a desire. So like just enjoy the moment.
It's like a enlightenment treadmill, but it's still like a treadmill, right? You want the next biggest awakening.
So I take it, as you said, as I take it into whatever I've decided is a part of my daily routine, whether it's teaching or eating or whatever, and I use it as sort of like back to view again, Dan. Like it's sort of a view. It's a view of seeing it, and yeah, I don't think about doing anything extra special. It's the super mundane, right? It's back to the super mundane. You continue to live your life, but now with this sort of gladdened mind or brightened mind, without these assumptions of, okay, I'm going to call this student, and okay, here's what I'm concerned about or worried about. No, it's like, okay, each time is like a new introduction. How are you doing today? What have you been doing today? And and being very receptive. And with that kind of super mundane, brightened up mind, I'm able to listen very, very carefully to what they're saying, because I'm not in the way anymore. Or if I'm eating lunch, my expectations or other thoughts aren't intruding, and I'm able to really enjoy whatever it is that I happen to be, chewing on. So I guess that's what my take on it is about how each of these sort of mundane experiences become really enjoyable because of that, rather than it's like going, okay, well, where's the next planet I'm going to rocket to from this gladdened mind? You know, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, and that's cool, right?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, just give my personal practice. What I'm working on, like, a lot for myself is loving kindness practice, because
Nice.
I tend to be, I have an aversive sort of personality from training, and I think it's helpful. I think that it's been very helpful in my life. It's been really transformative, doing sort of loving kindness practice. And then the other practice that I tend to do is exploring difficult emotions when I have this sort of mind state that he's talking about. If it feels really solid, and like, I mean, it's not like I do this all the time, but like, it can be useful if you have problems with anger or something like that. Like, whatever the emotion is that you struggle with, when you do get that sort of stability, sort of this jhanic bliss a little bit, to investigate.
Like some stable, like, happiness.
If there's a little bit of stability, I find that investigating that can be fine. And I don't think Dhammarato would have a problem with that, because I think I asked him about this, and there's tons of sutras that talk about investigating the skandhas and seeing them as empty of self, you know, and shifting your investigation to the emotions, which tend to be a sticking point for a lot of people in the West, can be helpful, I found, in my own personal practice, in sort of, I don't know what it is, what's changed, but I don't have explosive anger anymore. It just doesn't, anger's still there, but it's not explosive anymore. You know, and that's been really transformative. So I don't know exactly what it is that has shifted it. But yeah, and then when things just get too overwhelming and life is too much, then just the body, like, just coming back to investigating the body, and not just the external body, but inside as well. So that's my practice now.
That's cool. That's really similar to my approach, actually. There was a question I asked Dhammarato once, which was, what do you think about, like, suppressing our emotions to feel good now versus, like, allowing negative emotions to be there, but just, like, fully feeling into them? And I think that sounds kind of like what you were describing with the investigating the negative mind state, and sort of allowing yourself to feel that, and feel the, like, for me, it's like anxiety sometimes comes up in my meditations, but I'll focus on it, and in a way, it's sort of like, I mean, I don't want to say anything's higher or lower, but sometimes it feels like kind of like a higher order of gladdening, where I'm not just blocking myself from feeling, you know, the negative, to reframe it. I'm actually allowing myself to go deeply into it, and it's quite healing, I feel like, for me. And that sounds like what you were doing, or it sounds similar, at least.
Yeah,
something like
embracing. That? Yeah, exactly like that. Embracing your emotions, you know. And I mean, this is, I come from, like, Plum Village tradition, and Thich Nhat Hanh loves talking about this, you know, and, like, embracing whatever your emotion is, just taking it in with loving kindness, and allowing it to transform, and seeing that transformation. It's a beautiful process, you know. Every time it happens, it's like a miracle, you know. And it takes some right effort too. And this is a thing that can get lost with sort of the Vipassana sort of noting practice, I find, is that, like, it can be a little bit like, you note that you're depressed, and then you keep noting that you're depressed, and you keep noting that you're depressed, and you don't and you don't really change. I mean, I say this out of experience. I've done it, you know, and it does change eventually. There is that factor that if you do it for like 8 hours, it does change. But it's a little bit easier, and depending on your personality type, I think it's extremely beneficial. It's really transformed my life, honestly.
We have a really similar practice: the body scanning, the noting, the feeling the emotions, and then the Dhammarato thing. That's like that's like, you just listed like the top 4 practices I've done more than any others, and that was like your practices. It's just a coincidence.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Anyone else, or do you just do Dhammarato's stuff?
Well, I had a lot of fun at one point doing a little kind of Dharma tourism. After having spent a long time speaking with Dhammarato, I then, on his encouragement, went and checked out some other teachings and read some cool stuff from Zen and from the Tibetan stuff, and just had this wonderful experience of seeing agreement everywhere, of cutting out the chaff or the cultural stuff, the baggage, and just seeing, okay, yeah, there it is again, the finger pointing at the moon. Here's the Dharma. Okay, there's all this stuff that's been going on for hundreds of years around it, the cultural stuff. You look at the Tibetan stuff, and there's all this deity stuff going on, and it's like, gee, do I have to bring that along for the ride? No.
Yeah.
It's just symbolic, right? And actually, what it's symbolic of is often wonderful and fascinating. So there's a lot of fun to be had, and it really felt like that, like Dharma tourism, like just going and seeing. We were talking about physical travel earlier on, kind of a similar flavor, experiencing these different teachings. And
do you know of anywhere like you can see like a long list of like, I probably Wikipedia to be honest, but I was always been wondering if anyone's compiled like a meta resource of like all the spiritual teachings just in one place, so someone could really like survey because I'm always finding about new ones like just randomly like that I'd never heard of.
I tell you where it's probably best for that is the Stream Entry subreddit.
Yeah, cool.
Right, because people who find their way there tend to be dedicated practitioners. There's a good bullshit filter, and so you'll get a lot of practices in that melting pot, but they all tend to be worth their salt.
Very cool. Thank you. For that.
Yeah, or at the very least, someone is in a process of investigation about a given practice or teaching and is reporting on it. Oh, Dharma Seed. Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Yeah, very cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Good stuff. Guys, listen, I'm sure we could go on all night. I'm going to go rest. Of course, any of you who want to continue can continue. But for me, I'm ducking out, and I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Dan.
Really great speaking.
This is really great.
Yeah,
All right, Dan. I'll see you when I
I'm
get
gonna
back.
go too.
See you guys. Have a nice Christmas, Rick.
Hey, thanks so much.
In
Yeah.
Alabama.
Happy
Or
holidays.
Alabama, right?
Yeah, Alabama.
Yeah.
And
Have
I'll
fun.
put those red hats.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. I'm gonna go.